we'll use a chat function for questions, and then we just want you to know that this session will be recorded.
Okay, so once we're going to go over the ground rules of the group. We want, of course, you guys, like Alina just said, put yourselves on mute when you're not speaking. Listen with an open mind. Treat everyone with respect. Let people finish their sentences. Don't be afraid to share any ideas or suggestions. Others might have the same idea. And if you can use the chat function to put your name and the school you're associated with, that would be wonderful.
Okay, and then to introduce ourselves, my name is Alina Rodriguez, and I'm the Family Engagement and Community Outreach Coordinator for Toledo Public Schools.
And I'm Nicole Shetterly, the Family Engagement Coordinator for our early childhood program in the district. Excuse me.
Okay, and then I want to introduce our special guests. We have Kate Kitson from admissions. She's an admissions representative from Owens Community College. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that Kate can share hers.
All right, so we are going to try this. Okay. Can you all see the PowerPoint?
No.
Well, darn. I thought I had that all worked out. Okay, there we go. Now can you see it?
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay, so I am just going to give a brief presentation about Owens Community College. Owens is a 2-year local community college located just outside of Toledo, Ohio, as well as in Findlay, Ohio, about 45 minutes south of the main campus. Why to attend a community college? The financial savings are incredible. Right now, you can come to Owens for about half the cost, if not more than half the cost, of other schools in the area. We have great transferability between Owens and many other schools in the area. The flexibility of our classes, the personal attention in small class sizes. The average class size at Owens right now is 13 students to the teacher. You can ease into the college environment as well. A lot of students find that it's easier to start at Owens and then transfer to a 4-year school so they get used to the college environment in a small setting. Our classes and programs are incredibly hands-on. We prepare our students to go into the real world so that they do know what to do and what they're expected of on the first day of their job, and a skills upgrade. Who attends a community college? Everyone. Recent high school grads, current college or current high school students, students from other colleges, whether they're enrolled at another college and are just taking a class at Owens or they're transferring, as well as adults who are seeking a career change. We have 4 schools within Owens. The first is our School of Business, Information, and Public Service. This school includes our culinary program, business, insurance, our public safety departments. There are so many different programs within each school, but they all include a wide variety of programs and things that are available to the students. Our School of Liberal Arts, General Arts concentration. A concentration at Owens is any program that starts off for the students at the community college and then allows them to then transfer to a 4-year school. Fine and performing arts programs, humanities, social and behavioral sciences, as well as teacher education. Our School of Nursing and Health obviously includes the nursing program, but includes a wide variety of other health programs as well. Sonography, MRI, therapeutic services, including occupational therapy assistant, physical therapy assistant, exercise science. I will note that a lot of these programs at Owens within the School of Nursing and Health are what we consider a selective health program, which means that there is an additional process for students to be accepted into the college. But feel free to reach out to me or another admissions rep, and we'd be happy to go over that information with you. And finally, our School of STEM, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. This school includes, again, a wide variety of programs: engineering, IT, computer technologies, life and natural sciences, math, transportation technologies, and skilled trades. At Owens, each student is assigned to an academic advisor that is completely within their major. All of our academic advisors are very knowledgeable about the programs that they are advising in regards to. They will help students come up with specific goals for their programs to make sure that they do ultimately graduate on time and they don't have to stay for extra semesters. We also offer career and transfer services. Owens has great partnerships with lots of different employers in the area, as well as different schools in the area. So we are here to help you ultimately get a job in the field you want or transfer to the school that you want. We can help with resumes, cover writing, job seeking. Even if you're not entirely sure what you ultimately want to do after you attend Owens, there are tools that we offer that will help you explore different jobs, different careers, and all the ins and outs of those. One of the things that we are most proud of at Owens is our express programs. We have 4 express programs with UT, BG, Lourdes, and Findlay. And these are programs where students can enroll in Owens. And if they haven't been to one of those schools before, as long as they maintain at least a 2.0 GPA and have 12 credit hours, they're automatically accepted into the school of their choice. This does get students a free, they don't have to fill out an application for the school. We will send them the other school their transcripts at the end of each semester that they spend at Owens, and it allows students to meet with advisors from those other schools on our campus and they have the availability to go to the other school and participate in events there as well. We do have partnerships with a lot of other schools, however, and our students do transfer to a wide variety of schools across the state and the country. These are just the 4 most popular due to their location. Tuition and fees. Right now, Owens is $173 per credit hour. If a full-time student who's taking between 12 and 18 credit hours, after books, fees, tuition, you're looking at a very low cost option compared to many other schools in the area. We're about half the cost of some other schools, other 4-year schools, and about a third of the cost of others. So it is a great way to save money. It's starting at a 2-year school and then ultimately going into the job force or transferring to a 4-year school if that's your choice. And to get started, fill out the application. Owens is an open enrollment school, so the minute you apply, you're automatically accepted. You would just need to send any transcripts to Owens, high school or previous college. Make sure that they do come from that school directly so that they're considered official. Submit a ACT or SAT score. While we don't require an ACT or SAT score, if you have them, we'll take them. If you don't have them, then we'll just ask that you take our placement test, purely so that we know where you are in regards to math and English for class placement. Then you would attend a new student orientation and ultimately meet with an advisor to get signed up for classes. And that's all I have, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kate. And we'll now turn it over to Ashley Foster, and she's going to talk to you about FAFSA.
Okay, just a moment here. Let me go ahead and load up what I have here. Can everybody see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, well, thank you all for joining me today. This is always an important topic that students need to be made aware of and educated on, because it is an important piece of their, their process towards their educational goal. When you see OSERV with my title, that is also an office here at the college. We're a one-stop model where we provide the customer service support for financial aid, student accounts, and records. So with my knowledge and experience, I've been with financial aid for, gosh, it's probably been about 15 years now. So I have a vast knowledge of the different changes that have happened over the years. So again, welcome to tonight's presentation, and I will answer any questions that you have towards the end of the presentation. So to start us out, the topics that we're going to cover are how to apply, the different types of financial aid that will be available, and then the financial aid process in itself. So as we start out, the most popular application that you're going to be presented with or run into to complete financial aid is the free application for federal student aid. There are additional applications that your school may ask you to complete, but primarily this will be the application that you're doing for any institution that you're attending. One thing to know, as you see on the slide, is highlighted in all caps, is free. So it is a free application, so you should not be paying for this. There are definitely scams out there that once you get to the end of the application, it will ask you what's your method of payment. That's when you will know I went to the wrong site. I need to kind of revisit what Ms. Ashley told me and then go to the FAFSA.gov site. So with this next slide here, you're going to actually see down in the right corner there, you're going to see the site and what it will look like when you bring it up. So again, that will be the FAFSA.gov, G-O-V. If you are a senior this year, you're going to be filling out the 21-22 age year. So it's hard to believe that we're already talking 22 at this point. That actually does become available this Thursday. October 1st of every year is when the new application is released for the year to follow. So for the 21-22 age year, you're applying for any financial aid that you may be eligible for starting summer 21, fall of 21, and then that ends into spring 22. So every year you're going to be filling out this application. Again, the awards that will be provided to you off this application will be just for that 1 year particular. Each year, how you're going to sign your application is electronically, and that is done by creating an FSA ID, as you can see bulleted on the slide here. That again too will be the electronic signature for any Department of Ed form that you fill out electronically. So FAFSA being one of them, and then you may have a master promissory note that will be needed for your loans if you are a first-time loan borrower with the Department of Ed. And again, the FSA ID is also used for that as well too. If you are a dependent student, you will need one for both your parent and the student. We'll get into a little bit more details about the parent as we move along in this presentation tonight, and then it'll probably help to answer what questions about which parent should have one. So the first screen that I want to take you to here, you're just going to get some general overview of different parts of the FAFSA and what it's going to look like. So when you actually go to the FAFSA website and you click on Start Here or Log In, this will be the screen that it brings you to. So you're going to see that there's two different tabs. One says I am the student, and the other one says I am a parent or preparer or student from a freely associated state. Most individuals will select the I am student because they are likely the one that's filling it out. However, if you have a student and parent that are filling it out at separate times, the parent has the ability to go in on their own and complete their portion separately. I usually encourage students to try to be with their parent as they're completing the FAFSA because it just makes it better use of their time and you can get it done very quickly and efficiently. So as you're starting out here, if you do not have an FSA ID already created, this will be the spot where you actually click on Create One. And you'll see it right there where it says, don't have an FSA ID, create one. So at that time, it's going to then bring you into the site where you're going to generate that, which will be in the form of a username and password. The password is pretty strict, so I encourage students to write it down. It's not one that you have probably used before for yourself. So again, make sure you do write that out. Store it in a safe location because you only use it really once a year, so you're bound to forget it. So make sure you have that wrote down somewhere. I usually encourage students, tuck it away with your tax information or your parents' tax information, because every year when you fill out the financial aid application, it's also a reminder, if you haven't already done the FAFSA for the next year, that when you see the FSA ID, you now have that, that added reminder of I need to get that done. So moving on to the next slide here. Once you get into the FAFSA, you'll have the ability to use what we call the IRS data retrieval. And that allows both parents and students that if they completed a 2019 taxes, because for the 21-22 years, age year, you're going to be using the 2019 federal tax returns. So I Right now it says 2018 because that's the image that we had from our last presentations. So as you're linking up with this new age year, you're going to be using the 2019 tax information. And that will allow you, though, by clicking on the link to IRS, it will allow you to sync up with the IRS website, and it will verify that you have a tax return on file with them. And then you can transfer that information into the FAFSA, and it actually will answer those questions for you. One thing to know, though, is when it does transfer into the FAFSA, any of those questions that it answers, it will not show you the dollar amount that it has transferred in. Rather, it will show you in bold print, transferred from IRS. And you'll know that that question's been answered then. Any questions that could not be obtained from the IRS tax return will actually show sometimes all zeros, and then it's required of you to update it if it applies to you. If it does not apply to you, you just leave it as zeros. There are 3 questions, though, that will be blank, and such as, do you have any business income? Do you have any investments? Do you have any cash savings or checking? And that's all as of the date of the FAFSA, so that's not factored in from 2019. And on that one, you can't leave them blank, but if they don't pertain to you, you can put zeros in. So again, that will be part of what you come to the FAFSA at that point. So let's dive into parents' information and whose parents do you have to use on the FAFSA. So some of the questions that we get asked, one is parents' information even required? And the Department of Education will have a series of what we say about 13 questions. And the FAFSA has actually broken it down a little bit more differently, so you may not even ever be asked all 13 questions. And for some of them, they now group them together. But that is how they determine whether or not a student is considered a dependent student or an independent student. So dependent would mean that you have to supply your parents' information. You may not agree with it, and in fact, you may not even be living with your parents, and you may be self-supporting on your own. However, the Department of Education, based on those responses, has deemed you as a dependent of your parent and will ask that parents' information be provided. Now, if you answer yes to one of the questions, you could be considered independent student. And then for the purposes of the FAFSA, you would only be asked to require your information moving forward. However, if you answered one of those questions, it may be possible that the school has to ask for supporting documentation, especially because we have some students that may answer a question incorrectly because they misunderstood it, and that happens from time to time, and that's perfectly fine and perfectly okay. But again, too, we have to make sure that we can confirm that that is an accurate response. And then at that time, if the student incorrectly responded to it, it's an easy fix, and we can help the students to go in and correct that. So the next question is, who is considered a legal parent? So the most obvious are your biological parents, both mom and dad. Then you have adoptive parents, as long as it was by the age of 13, and then state designated parents. So state designated parents would be those who fall onto your birth certificate. So not considered legal parents, even if it's a legal custody agreement or legal guardianship, would be grandparents, foster parents, legal guardians, or again, to any type of custody status. So again, in that custody status, if they have legally adopted you, then they can provide their information if they legally adopted you prior to the age of 13. Beyond that, though, then it would be more or less a petition for independency status, and you would want to reach out to the school for additional support on that FAFSA. So now that we've kind of identified which parents' information we have to provide on the FAFSA, we now need to identify their marital status. So for parents who are never married, or perhaps going through a divorce or separation, is going to be who the student lives with the most out of 12 months of the year. If it's a mutual separation to where the student is splitting their time 50% of the time between the parents, then it's going to be whoever provides more than 50% of support to that dependent. If that parent happens to be remarried, then a step-parent information would also need to be provided on the FAFSA. And we do get, and it's difficult, but we do get step-parents that state, I have no financial ties to the student whatsoever. But unfortunately, the Department of Ed still views that as income in that household and does require the step-parents information to be provided to. The most obvious one is married. If the parents are married, then obviously both parents is going to be provided on the FAFSA. And then unmarried as well too. Unmarried, if they're living together, is both parents then as well too. Okay, so then how do we come to how much financially we're going to give to students? And this is the same for any school you attend. And the premise of my presentation is I do provide this presentation as if you're going to be transferring outside of a 2-year institution. So I do want to make sure that you're well aware of anything you encounter with a 4-year institution as well. So one thing to know and understand is that every institution has what we call a cost of attendance or a budget. In that cost of attendance, you're going to find direct costs and indirect costs. On this slide here, you're going to be able to see that the direct costs are primarily your tuition and fees and your books and supplies, which are pretty standard. What can be indirect costs are your transportation, room and board, and miscellaneous and personal expenses. You may even find at times that the room and board may be considered a direct cost if it's included in part of your billing already. But again, so the cost of attendance is going to vary depending on where you go to school. So again, if you go to a private institution versus a public, you're going to see a big difference in that cost of attendance. And then likewise, for a 4-year university versus a 2-year, you're going to again see that difference in attendance or cost of attendance. The next slide here is called the expected family contribution. And if you think of the FAFSA, every piece of information you're putting in there is considered almost like a formula, just one massive formula. The end result is what we call the expected family contribution, and that will be an actual number that you receive. From that number, we can start determining what a student is eligible for off a Pell Grant right away, and then loans will be factored in based on that cost of attendance as well. So as you see here on this slide, the expected family contribution again, does factor in all the components of the FAFSA, which includes parents' income, the assets, as I mentioned before, the business investments and cash and savings, and then household members. And also the factored into the household members are how many are going to college. So those are very important questions as you come upon them in the FAFSA. So to see this in a little bit bigger lens, we will take the cost of attendance and then subtract that expected family contribution from that. And then that's how institutions start to develop the financial need for the students. So that expected family contribution does not change wherever you go to school. It will remain the same. So for a Pell Grant, if the FAFSA is telling you that you're projected to receive this amount in a Pell Grant, you're going to find that you have that same amount of Pell Grant no matter where you go. What may be different, though, is any institutional aid, student loan amounts that could be offered to you, because we cannot exceed that cost of attendance. So to kind of put it into a more of a picture scope, I created a bar chart for everybody. So you can kind of see the varying costs of attendance depending on where you go. So for the first bar, you'll see the one in red. That would be more like your private institutions. And then 2 listed there would be your public 4-year, and 3 would be your 2-year. And then you'll see that the expected family contribution does not change. It remains consistent wherever you go. But then the gap between the two, between all those 3 institutions, identifies how much financial need and how much the school is trying to be able to offer you up to that cost of attendance amount. So the different types of financial aid that you're applying for. One thing to know is that when you're filling out the financial aid application, any of the financial aid that you're eligible to receive, federal aid eligible, will come in off that FAFSA, and that does include student loans. So a lot of students have a misconception that grants and student loans are a separate application for each, and it is not correct. So when you're filling out that FAFSA application, primarily what you're applying for is grants, both federal and state in that manner, and then any of the federal direct student loans. Outside of that, institutional loans will also come in off of that FAFSA, but again, depending on where you go, they may ask you to complete another application for the institutional loans or any additional institutional aid. Most institutions do not have that separate application and can generate it based on that FAFSA application though. There are also some scholarships that may even have you complete the FAFSA too to identify what you're eligible for. And then they also do it based on financial need. So again, those who demonstrate the most financial need may be awarded a scholarship over another student in some cases. Not in all, but in some. So I want to kind of draw attention to state aid in case there's anybody that's interested in the nursing program. There's a great loan to apply for, and that's known as the Nurse Education Assistance Loan Program, otherwise known as NELP. That one, it is an approval process. So once you fill out the application, you're just not automatically approved as you are with the other grants and student loans that you're applying for. So for that one, when you apply for it, the school will receive information that you have applied for it, and then you too would also work with the state entity in which you applied for that application under. The nice thing about it is that once you get into the program and you graduate and start working in the career field, after so many years of working in the career field, as long as you're meeting the eligibility criteria of that loan still, you could request for the loan to be forgiven for the rest of the time frame. So it's a really good loan for students to seek out if they're going into the nursing program. Scholarships, I encourage students to apply for scholarships as much as possible. There's not a magical number on how many scholarships you can apply for. In fact, I know a student that went to BGSU and just on little scholarships, had about 13 different scholarships and was able to fund their entire education based on that many. So again, there's no cutoff on it. We just can't exceed that cost of attendance with them. But again, you can apply up to however many of your choosing, and then also to be approved for up to that many as well too. A lot of scholarships too will pay for all expenses, which include books and supplies too. There are some though that are just specific to just the tuition. So you do want to make sure you're really understanding that as you're applying for it and looking at that print. A lot of scholarships too, the deadlines are coming up pretty quickly. So I do encourage you to start looking for those now, especially seniors. Seniors, you probably want to be applying for them no later than January. So you have a quick turnaround time from here moving forward on those ones. Going down to the next bullet that we see there is the federal work study. We have any institution you go to, you're going to find student employment positions. And we really appreciate the work that our student workers do for us. So a lot of them you find on campus. There are some federal work study positions that are off campus. In those positions, you're building your resume right off the bat, and you're already, honing in on your professional skills as you're working in that industry. So the income that you're receiving from federal work study, though, is considered to be financial aid. So you'll still get it in a form of a paycheck. But the nice thing about it is, let's say that you're earning the income in 2020, and then when you fill out the FAFSA for the year in which you earned that income for 2020, that income, you would report it as federal work study, and then the Department of Education does not view that as an actual income coming into the house. It could, because again, too, it was considered financial aid to them. So there are definitely perks to that program, and I encourage students that that they already have any interest or any questions on it to meet with their financial aid office to seek out more information on that one. The thing to know about loans is, one is the maximum that you're able to be offered will always be offered to you. That's for the federal direct loans. And you don't have to accept those loans in full. We'll have another slide here in just a moment on loans, but make sure that you really do your research as far as how much you're going to need and only accept what you need at that point. Because again, too, you do have to pay those loans back even if you don't, finish your program or study. For institutional loans, again, too, those may be offered to you right off of the financial aid application itself. So again, those ones are typically paid for through to the institution itself as you begin your repayment terms, whereas the federal direct loans, you'd be paying the Department of Education. As a last resort, we encourage students to seek out alternative loans. The reason we say that is because those ones are usually credit check based, and then also too, they require sometimes immediate payment right away, whereas the other federal direct loans, you're going to find here in a few moments, you have some time before you have to start paying on those. And then another thing with alternative loans, they do carry higher interest rates. So you just really want to make sure you're reading the fine print of any of those alternative loans. I'm not saying don't take advantage of them, but just I would say use them as your last resort. So as promised, we have a loan totally dedicated to federal direct loans. Because again, too, these will be offered to students regardless if they're eligible for the Pell Grant or not. Students will always still have federal direct loans offered to them. So you will find that you will either have subsidized and unsubsidized or just unsubsidized offered to you. the subsidized is the interest that does not accrue interest while you're in school. However, you do have what we call it's 150% loan limit, meaning that if you're seeking a 4-year degree and you're at a 4-year university, you have up to 6 years worth of that subsidy. If you go backwards, you start at a 4-year and you go backwards and you end up going to an associate degree instead, you're going to lose some of that subsidy and not gain it back. Because when you go into an associate level degree, they only give you 3 years worth of that subsidy. And then again, like I said, if you backtracked and then try to go back forward, they don't allow you to gain back what you had already originally started with. So you really want to make sure you do that pretty wisely when you first begin. The unsubsidized portion of it, it will require the interest to start accruing while you're in school. You don't have to start paying it back right away, but again, too, it'll start accruing. We usually do encourage students as much as possible to pay on the interest that has been accruing while you're in school. Otherwise, what you'll find is that when you actually, excuse me, what you'll find is that as you go back to repay your loans when once you've graduated or you stop attending at least 6 credit hours, all that interest that you had accruing over that course of time is still sitting there. And then that payment, your monthly payment, has interest with that as well too. So it's capitalization to where you have the interest on top of other interest. So again, it's within your best interest to be able to start paying on that as much as possible. So the annual loan limits will be varied based on your grade level. And it's not like high school to where you finish up your freshman year and you automatically entered into your sophomore year. How we identify grade levels is based on credit hour completion for your particular program. And sophomores, you have to complete at least 30 credit hours for your program to be entered into a sophomore level status. But the next slide I'll show you here in just a few moments will show you the up to amounts of which you could potentially be offered in a federal direct loan. So one thing also to know about the subsidized and unsubsidized loans is that the loans are in the student's name. So your parents not tied to that, grandparents are not tied to it. There is not a cosigner for these loans. It is solely on the student's responsibility to make sure they know and understand the loans that they're accepting and that they are going to be the ones that are repaying the loan back. The repayment terms for the loans, it begins 6 months after you graduate, as long as you're maintaining at least a part-time status. If you drop below part-time, your 6 months repayment term will begin then. Now, one thing to also know about these is that, let's say that you start attending Owens and you graduate from Owens with an associate degree, but the following semester, you go right into taking your bachelor's program. So you're back at 6 credit hours. That means that your 6-month grace period has not started yet for you. It still keeps that in what we call deferment status for you, and you would not begin repayment on your loans until you complete your bachelor's program at least. Again, as long as you're maintaining that part-time status. One thing also with the loans, they will always start, when I say they, the Department of Education will always start students out on a 10-year repayment plan. If the 10-year repayment plan does not work for you, you're going to want to contact the Department of Education, the loan servicer, and ask them if they have any other payment options available, and they will work with you on that. There are some payment options that are as little as $0 a month even too, based on what's going on in the income in the household. So one thing to know about that is just make sure that you don't let your loans slip into default status, because it's very difficult to get it out of default, rather just working with the loan servicer up front and making sure that that doesn't happen. So with the Department of Education, the nice thing about these loans is that they carry the lowest interest rate that we have saw for student loans. So the interest rates, they do change every year, and July 1st every year is when the new interest rates do come out. So for this coming year, these are the interest rates that are set now. So for the direct loans, you will find it's 2.75% fixed interest rate. So when you begin to repay back your loans, because it's a fixed rate, that will be the interest rate with that particular loan that you took out that year. So that's kind of a nice added perk too. You will also find that we have origination fees with these loans, and we take those out upfront, which means that when you have your loans showing as offered to you and you accept that amount, you're going to want to expect a slight difference in the amount that actually pays out, because they're taking out the origination fee upfront, so you don't owe it in the back end. In regards to the Parent Plus loans, depending on where you go, if they encourage students to apply for a Parent Plus loan, you may see on your award notice or your award letter that it has a Parent Plus loan amount listed there. If you have not applied for a Parent Plus loan, that's just the amount that they're encouraging you to apply for. It doesn't mean that you've already applied for it. The Parent Plus loan is the separate application, and it actually does go through a credit check. So parents could potentially be denied a Parent Plus loan. If that does happen, the dependent would automatically qualify for an independent student loan amount then. And so you'll find that as a dependent student, if your parent's been denied the Plus loan, it will show up as an additional unsubsidized loan for you to accept. The annual loan limits, again, too, we can't exceed that cost of attendance, so they can only give you up to the cost of attendance. So whereas you may apply for $10,000 and be approved for $10,000, you may only be able to get $3,000 of that. So that's the only amount that the college will actually originate and actually be able to disperse out to the parent then at that point. The repayment terms for the Parent Plus loan is actually slightly different from the federal direct loans, the subsidized and unsubsidized specifically, whereas this one it acts just like a regular loan. After it has dispersed, a parent will begin repaying that 60 days after the loan has fully dispersed. However, the parent can request in their master promissory note that it be treated just like the student's subsidized and unsubsidized loan, meaning they do not begin repayment on that loan until the student has actually graduated, until 6 months after. So that would be a personal preference up to the parent, and probably a conversation that you would want to have with your parent too at that point. And again, too, it does start out as the 10-year repayment period for that as well too. And then as you see there too, the Parent Plus loan always requires a higher interest rate. This is standard, no matter, again, too, wherever you see this from year to year, it's always going to have a higher interest rate. So for, again, this year, you're going to see it 5.3%, and then the origination fee is a little higher as well, too. Now, for Owens in particular, you would not likely need a Parent Plus loan. We have very few students that do, and primarily we see that with students that are being charged out-of-state fees, where their cost might be a little bit higher. Or maybe they have some higher program expenses, like our dental hygiene programs. They have dental kits that they have to pay for, things of that nature, that may require them to have a little bit more financial aid that was not able to be covered all the way up to their cost of attendance already. The maximum loan amount per the grade level that you're in, and dependent or independent status. As a freshman entering college, the dependent status will only be able to get up to $5,500. If you're an independent status, it's up to the $9,500. What you'll find, though, is that the maximum subsidized loan amount that they can award you as a freshman is $3,500. So the difference of that would be the unsubsidized. So that's that combination of the two as they're offered to you. If that is not enough to cover all your tuition and fees, and there's still room within your cost of attendance, that's where that Plus loan may come in, or seeking an alternative loan may also help you out too. But again, as you complete your credit hours within your grade level, so 30 credit hours for freshmen, you'll bump up to a sophomore and get an extra $1,000. And then likewise for your junior and senior, you'll get $1,000 more from there. One thing we always tell students, just be very cautious with how much you're accepting, because it can add up very, very quickly. I mean, for instance, if you look at it in just 2 years, for a dependent student status, you already have $11,000 accepted if you put the full amount. And that's when you're 18 going into 19. So that's a lot of money right up front. So just be careful about that part of it. As you'll see at the bottom of the slide here, always know that you can monitor your loan history. That's no matter wherever you go to school. You can always check to see the status of it and how much you have borrowed. And also too, on that site, you will see the contact information for the school and the contact information for your loan servicer. So all the information is right there for you. And guess what you're going to need when you sign into that site? You will need your FSA ID for that as well too. Okay. All right, so then what's next? And this is kind of rounding up the presentation here. So once you complete the financial aid application, as long as, well, let's back up. So when you complete the financial aid application, you do have to list the school in which you want your information to be sent to. If you don't list a school that you're interested in going to, they will never receive your information. Know that you can always go back onto a FAFSA and update any piece of it, including that portion of it as well too. So once you've indicated what school that you're having your FAFSA sent to, it takes about 3 to 5 business days for that school to receive that application. And once we get it, we start generating what we call award notices. and we'll start sending those out to students. So as you're looking at those award notices, it may be a deciding factor on where you're going to go to school, but depending on what they're able to offer you. So again, some of those questions up there that you're seeing on the slide are things that you want to be asking yourself and making the smart financial decisions of where you're going. So, make sure that you understand what a grant is versus what a loan is. The grants will always show up as accepted because it's the free aid that you do not have to pay back. Whereas the loans, they will be offered to you because you have to make the decision of how much you're accepting on it. The institution cannot tell you how much to accept. That is a decision that, again, has to be made by you. But what we can do is we can educate you on what your costs are and how much else in financially that you have coming in, and how to project from there what you're going to need. So we can at least do that for you to help you out. So again, after asking those questions and looking at the award notice, you also want to pay attention to any financial aid requirements that you may find on your school portal. And some of the requirements that you may actually see is what we call verification process, which does ask for some redundant information from what you already filled out on the FAFSA, which could have been your tax information. It's a process by which the Department of Education requires the school to verify the information that you reported. Now, if you use the IRS data retrieval, it does not require you to submit a physical federal tax return because that has already been verified through the IRS and at that point. So it would waive that requirement for you. However, there may be additional items in which you have to fill out some forms, such as how many is in your household, the dependents that are listed underneath your parents, things like that. So always pay attention to your student portal and make sure you're completing those requirements as you see them in a timely manner. And then the last requirements, and this will be standard no matter where you go to school, but your first time borrowing a loan with that institution, be it that it's a federal direct loan in itself too, you would have to complete an entrance loan counseling and then a master promissory note. The entrance loan counseling is to ensure that you understand the loans that you're accepting, and the master promissory note is just what it is. It's your promise to pay back the loan. So those will they will show up automatically as a loan is being offered to you. And then beyond financial aid, some important other, financial options that are available to you. Just, look to see, are there any institutional payment plans? Can you make monthly payments, or, how can you set up that type of a plan? And again, too, that will either be a student account office or perhaps a financial aid office. Most institutions now have the one-stop model, very similar to where my office is under, that it'll likely be that office that you're having that conversation with. Also to employer tuition assistance. Most individuals don't realize that they can reach out to their employer's HR office, or even their parents can reach out to their HR office and see if any of their dependents qualify for any tuition assistance. So that is something I always encourage students to seek out too. And then military benefits. If there's any veterans in the house, we have so many programs in place now to help veterans and their dependents and their spouses that there's a potential that you may even be eligible for that on top of the financial aid you're already receiving as well too. And then you also have, to round that up too, you have tax benefits that could likely help you out, like the savings plans, things like that. And then AmeriCorps as well too, which is a great program to get into for anybody that is able to get into that. Okay, and then the last slide I have for you here is, the takeaways from it, because it's a lot of information to go over and, just absorb. One is, if you can take anything out of this presentation, is to remember that the FAFSA is free. Do not pay for it. And then even a postage stamp sometimes is too much anymore. We do find that scholarships, right now, most of them's all electronic. So there might be some one-offs that you have to mail something in for, and that's perfectly fine. But again, if they're asking you for your social security number, date of birth, those types of things, likely it's a scam. So you want to be very careful of that. Or if they're asking you to pay into something to be able to get an award out of it, that's a red flag. That's a scam too. So be very careful of those ones. There are some things as you get into your program though, that you may want to subscribe to a specific organization. So again, too, I like to use dental because dental is a really good one for this. But there's a dental association that you subscribe to. And then once you subscribe to that, there may be embedded in that organization scholarships in which the student can apply for. So those are not scams, and those are ones that we do encourage students to look at and seek out. But if ever you have a question about a scholarship and it just seems kind of fishy, reach out to the financial aid office. We'll be happy to look at it and investigate it for you further and let you know whether or not it's a good one to apply for or not. So with that, I thank you for listening to the long presentation that we had about the financial aid. Hopefully you found that it was informational and has answered maybe some questions up to this point, and you now have a good understanding of what you need to do. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and we will take it back to be able to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions at this time? No? All right. Well, Alina and I appreciate your presentation, and thank you so much for doing this. And we will be posting this on our Facebook page, so hopefully we'll be able to reach more students and individuals. So thank you guys very much.
Yes, thank you again very much, ladies. Great job.
Thank you for having us. If anybody has any questions afterwards, just let me know. I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All
And
right.
thank you,
Everybody. All right. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
You the same. Thanks.
Bye.
All right. Bye.